5:30 train be along anytime soon.
Well, the 5:30 train's been in and gone, half an hour ago. But there was a passenger dropped off for you from the orphanage, a little girl. She's sitting over there. You know, I asked her to go into the ladies' waiting room, but she informed me gravely that she preferred to stay outside. There was more scope for the imagination, she said. She's a case, I should say.
But it's a boy I've come for. Mrs. Spencer was to bring him over from Nova Scotia for me.
Oh, well, guess there's some mistake. I don't have any more orphans concealed hereabouts. Good day.
Are you Mr. Mathew Cuthbert?
Well now.
Of Green Gables?
I suppose I am.
Anne Shirley. The matron said I should wait at the station until you arrived.
You're from the orphanage?
I was this morning, but today I am Anne of Green Gables. Isn't the world full of wonderful surprises?
I reckon it is.
I was beginning to be afraid you weren't going to come, and I had made up my mind that I would go down the track to the big cherry tree at the bend and stay the night. Wouldn't it be lovely to sleep in a cherry tree all white with bloom in the moonshine?
The matron didn't send anyone else.
I'm sure she wanted to. The orphanage is just spilling over with children. Oh, Mr. Cuthbert, I feel as though I have just stepped into a fairy tale.
Well, the buggy's over here. Let me take your bag.
Oh, I can carry it. It's got all my worldly goods in it, but it isn't very heavy. And if it isn't held a certain way, the handle pulls out. Can you think of how often I have dreamed of this moment? The moment I would actually belong to someone. I've never belonged to anyone before, not really, but I have spent hours imagining what it might be like. Do you ever imagine things, Mr. Cuthbert, that could only come true in a fairy tale?
Well, now, I can't say as I have.
I don't suppose you were ever an orphan, so you can't possibly imagine what it's like. It's worse than anything, but can you think of what an immensely important day it was for me when Mrs. Spencer said I was wanted by a Mr. Mathew Cuthbert and his sister Marilla? For the first time, I am utterly, absolutely contented. Take a breath of air. I can feel tomorrow, it's calling me, waiting there. Take a breath of air. I can see my future if only I dare. Could it be a fairy tale beckons now for me? Could it be I'm on the trail of happily ever after-ing? Oh, Mr. Cuthbert, those trees, they look like a bride, all in white with a lovely misty veil. I've never actually seen a bride, but I can imagine what one might look like. I don't ever expect to be a bride myself because, well, I'm so homely no one would ever want to marry me. Unless he might be a foreign missionary. I suppose a foreign missionary mightn't be very particular. Oh, but I do hope that one day I shall have a white dress and it will have puffed sleeves. Puffed sleeves are my highest ideal of earthly bliss. I just love pretty clothes, and I've never had a pretty dress of my own, but I suppose that's all the more to look forward to, isn't it? Take a breath of air. Can you smell the columbine? All of my dreams are there. Take a breath of air. Can you just imagine a place free from care? I can feel it calling me just beyond the bend. If I look hard, I can see a hearth, a home, a bed, a friend. Just now, I am pretty nearly perfectly happy. I can't be exactly perfectly happy because, well, what color would you call this?
It's red, ain't it?
Yes, it's red. The boys at the orphanage used to tease me every day mercilessly. They taunted me with the one word I detest more than any other.
What word was that?
I have vowed never to repeat it. But it's a food. And it's the color of my hair.
Carrot?
Oh, Mr. Cuthbert! You can't know how that word eats into my very soul. You must promise never to tell anyone. It is like drinking lye for me. Do you promise?
Well, now, I suppose it wouldn't hurt none to promise that.
I I can just tell you and I are going to be kindred spirits, Mr. Cuthbert. Isn't it wonderful to be able to start over fresh with nothing but hope ahead? Oh, Mr. Cuthbert, what is this called?
I reckon this is a road that runs through an orchard of cherry trees. And it's a kind of pretty place.
Pretty? Well, pretty isn't very nearly the word to describe it, but a lovely place such as this should have a name. I'll call it the White Way of Delight. That's a nice imaginative name, isn't it? Oh, Mr. Cuthbert, what is that?
That's Barry's Pond.
The Lake of Shining Waters. That's the right name for it. Take a breath of air. All that once was dying now throws up despair. Listen, you can hear the birds sing the day away. If you listen to the words, they promise bright and happy days.
We're pretty near home now.
Take a breath of air. Throw away your sorrows, tomorrow's just waiting there. Take a breath of air. I can feel it calling, waiting there.
That's Green Gables, right around here.
Oh, I was beginning to think it was all a dream. I must have pinched myself so many times today. My arm must be black and blue from the elbow up. But it isn't a dream, and we're very nearly home.
People who know me know that I'm not one to intrude in other people's lives.
Good afternoon, Rachel.
What other people do is other people's business, I always say. But when it comes to neighbors, never let it be said that Rachel Lynde abandoned her friends.
A real fine evening, isn't it?
As much as I tried to think of a reason for your brother to hitch up the buggy and drive away at 3:30 this afternoon, I couldn't.
Won't you sit down?
I was beginning to think something had happened.
Matthew is fine, Rachel. I'm fine.
I might add that he hitched up the sorrel mare, which could only mean that he was planning to travel some distance.
Matthew went to the train station at Bright River. We're getting a boy from the orphan asylum in Nova Scotia.
Are you in earnest, Marilla?
Matthew's bringing him home tonight.
If you had said that Matthew had gone to Bright River to meet a kangaroo from Australia, I couldn't be more astonished. What on earth put such a notion into your head?
Matthew's getting along in years, and his heart troubles him every now and again. And you know how desperate hard it is to find dependable hired help.
Well, Marilla, I'll tell you plain that I think you're doing a mighty foolish thing, a risky thing. You're bringing a strange child into your house, and you don't know a single thing about him or what his disposition is like. Why, it was just last week in Charlottetown. A family's house was burning down. A grinning, devilish orphan lit the match. A risky thing. Inspector said the boy deserved the blame. He longed to see the smoke and flame. The family all got out without a scratch. Still a risky thing.
Sometimes it pays to refrain before calling drizzle a rain. Just 'cause a child has been orphanaged doesn't mean he should be caged.
A child
Sometimes
at
it pays to
best a risky thing, not easy, son and daughter ranges. And then
Sometimes
the
a fence can make you
or that's case. There's documented cases now, absolutely tragic cases now. Quite a risky thing.
Are you staying for tea,
Oh,
Rachel?
no, thank you. Mr. Lynde is expecting me. Where's the boy?
There wasn't any boy, there was only her.
No boy, but there must have been a boy.
This, Marilla, is how things begin. I'm not one of those who likes to say if you'd only listen to me, but you never know where some things might lead, that's what.
We sent word to Mrs. Spencer to bring a boy.
Well, she didn't. She brought her, and no matter where the mistake had been made, she couldn't be left there.
Mistake?
You should be grateful, Marilla. The hand of Providence is at work here. You've been given another chance to think it over.
You don't want me? Because I'm not a boy?
We need help with the planting.
I should have known it was all too beautiful to last. I should have known nobody really did want me. This is the most tragical thing that has ever happened to me.
Well, don't cry. We're not going to turn you out tonight. You'll stay until we can straighten things out. What is your name?
Would you please call me Cordelia?
Call you Cordelia. Is that your name?
Not exactly, but it's so perfectly elegant.
What is your name?
Anne Shirley, but it can't matter much what you're going to call me if I'm only going to stay here a little while, can it? And besides, Anne is such an unromantic name.
Anne is a good, plain, sensible name. You've no need to be ashamed of it.
Oh, I'm not ashamed of it. It's just I like Cordelia better. But if you must call me Anne, could you please call me Anne spelled with an E?
What difference does it make how it's spelled?
Well, when I hear names pronounced, I see them spelled out. And A-N-N-E looks so much more distinguished. If you could please call me Anne with an E, I shall try and reconcile myself with not being called Cordelia.
Very well then. Anne with an E.
Cordelia, Anne with an E, the very thought. Why Mrs. Spencer didn't send a boy, I'll never know.
Mrs. Spencer said you wanted a girl, about 12, and after being passed over so many times for smaller children, the matron picked me.
They didn't pick you for your looks, that's sure and certain.
I know I'm not beautiful.
Terrible skinny.
I don't
Did
wanna be
anyone ever see such freckles?
What can I do about...
And waffle heart, look at her hair, it's as red as carrots.
How dare you call me skinny and ugly? How dare you say I'm freckled and redheaded? How would you like it if someone were to call you fat, clumsy, and probably hadn't a spark of imagination in you?
Did anyone ever see such a temper?
Matthew, would you please show Anne to her room?
Lock your doors and seal the well, Marilla. If you keep that child under your roof for even a single night, it will be a risky thing.
You shouldn't have twitted her about her looks, Rachel.
Marilla Cuthbert, you don't mean to say that you are upholding that child in such a terrible display.
I'm not excusing her, but she may never have been taught what is right, and you were too hard on her.
Well, I can see that I'll have to be very careful what I say after this, Marilla, since the fine feelings of orphans, brought from goodness knows where, have to be considered before anything else. But if you'll take my advice, which I suppose you won't, although I've brought up 10 children and buried 2, you'll take a fair-sized birch switch to that child.
I reckon this is where you'll sleep tonight. It ain't much, especially for a girl, but we hadn't really planned.
I've never slept in a room all by myself before.
Do you think you'll be lonely tonight?
I think I will just sit here and look out this window. I want to memorize everything so that I can remember. Mr. Cuthbert, what is that?
I reckon that's the old cherry tree.
Imagine having a cherry tree right outside my
If there's anything you need, just come downstairs and ask.
Thank you, Mr. Cuthbert, for being so kind and bringing me here to Green Gables, even though I was a mistake.
Good night, Anne, with an E.
Pretty cherry tree, don't you cry for me. You're a queen in white, the loveliest sight. Don't you stain your dress with the tears caress. You're too regal, tall, and free for me. Cry for the bird that has lost its nest. Cry for the yellow-back bee. Cry for the lonely, cry for the rest, but please don't cry for me. Pretty tree, I do love to talk to you, for you listen well to all that I tell. But dear cherry tree, it is not to be, for a queen cannot be seen with a girl like me.
A birch switch, directly applied, that is the remedy for a high-spirited child. The whole world is certainly turning upside down. Marilla and Mathew Cuthbert are adopting a boy from an orphan asylum. Why, it was just last week in Charlottetown. A family's house was burning down. A grinning, devilish orphan lit the match. A risky thing.
So, I heard Inspector said the boy deserved the blame. He longed to see the smoke and flame. The family all got out without a scratch.
A risky thing. A child at best, a risky thing. Not easy, son or daughtering. The trouble orphans bring. There's documented cases now. I wouldn't trade them places now. Not for anything.
Another case I know just west of here. A farmer's livelihood, I fear, was perilled by a rash of stolen eggs. A risky thing, afraid he wouldn't get enough to eat. The orphan ate them for his meat. Before the farmer farmed, but now he begs.
A risky thing. Child at best, a risky thing. Not easy, son or daughtering.
But then the trouble orphans bring. There's documented cases now. I wouldn't trade them places now. Not for anything. Quite a risky thing.
Believe all this? I cannot.
I spoke with Mrs. Spencer today. She claims she was told it was a girl we wanted. Anyhow, the mistake has been made, and all we can do is set it right.
Said it right.
Turns out we're in luck. Mrs. Blewett is looking for a girl to watch her children.
Peter Blewett's wife? Mrs. Blewett has 9 children. She's a terrible worker and driver.
Fortunately, we can take Anne into Carmody tomorrow.
Simon Moss said his daughter worked for Mrs. Blewett last summer. Only lasted 5 days. Said Mrs. Blewett would only feed her but leftovers, scolded her whenever she sat, and took a rod to her when she fell asleep in the middle of the night rocking the little one.
Well, the orphanage has filled Anne's place already. They don't have room to take her back, so I don't see what choice we have in the matter.
Well, there might be a few things around here a girl might do.
Matthew Cuthbert, you don't mean to say you think we ought to keep her?
Well, I suppose we could hardly be expected to keep her.
I should say not. What good would she be to us?
We might be some good to her.
Matthew Cuthbert, I believe that child has bewitched you.
She is an interesting little thing.
We're taking her to Carmody tomorrow, and that's an end to it. Anne, please come down to supper.
Well, now, I suppose you know best, Marilla. I wouldn't give a dog I like to that Blewett woman.
You can sit there for the time being. Matthew?
Well, now, Lord, you've looked after us pretty good up till now, even when we didn't maybe deserve it so much. Help us do the same for others who might need it, if we ever get the chance. And bless this food. Amen.
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 You're not eating anything.
I can't. I'm in the depths of despair. Can you eat when you're in the depths of despair?
I have never been in the depths of despair, so I can't say.
Couldn't you imagine you were in the depths of despair?
I don't believe in imagining things different than what they really are.
Oh, how much you miss. Imagining things is half the pleasure of them.
When the
might
Lord
get
puts us in certain circumstances, He doesn't mean for us to imagine them away.
But things are so much lovelier when you imagine. I just know the Snow Queen loves her name.
Snow Queen.
Oh, the cherry tree right outside my window. It's radiantly lovely and it blooms as if it meant it. Isn't it a wonderful tree?
It's a big tree, and it blooms great, but the fruit don't amount to much never, all soft and wormy.
Don't you think it must be glad to be a cherry tree?
No, but I'd be glad if you ate your dinner. It's growing cold.
I saw one little early wild rose today.
I reckon those are the roses my mother brought over from Scotland. I've always had a special liking for them.
Oh, they have the most beautiful buds, and pink is the most bewitching color. I love it, but I can't wear it. Red-headed people can't wear pink. Not even in imagination. Say, did you ever hear of anyone whose hair was red when they were younger, but grew to be a different color when they grew up?
No, I don't know that I have, and I shouldn't think it likely to happen in your case either.
Oh, well, that's another hope gone. My life is a perfect graveyard of buried hopes. I read that sentence in a book once. I say it over to comfort myself whenever I'm feeling disappointed in anything.
Lands, child. The dinner table is for eating, not for mooning over things that aren't so. If you're not going to eat, there's no point in your sitting to supper. You can go on upstairs to your room now.
I could hire a French boy,
What?
someone to help this summer with the chores. Sam Lindsay hires one every year and says if you keep a careful eye out, they work tolerable well.
We don't need another mouth to feed.
And could keep you company.
I am not suffering for company. I have never seen such a stubborn child. 3 times today I asked her to apologize to Rachel, and 3 times she refused. I will not have such a rebellious child in my home.
Well, now, I suppose you know best, Marilla. How are you making it, Anne?
Pretty well. Rather lonesome, actually, but that's something I'm rather used to.
Well, now, Anne, have you given any thought of talking with Mrs. Lynde?
Do you mean apologize?
Apologize. That's the very word. Smooth things over, so to speak.
Does this mean a great deal to you? Because if it did, I suppose I could do it. To oblige you. It would be true enough to say I'm sorry, because I really am sorry now.
Well, now, it might make you feel better, and I suppose it'd make me real proud, too.
Oh, I will tell Marilla as soon as she comes in that I have repented.
But don't tell Marilla I said a thing about it.
Wild horses couldn't drag the secret from me. Mrs. Lynde, I am extremely sorry. I am so extremely sorry. I could not sum up all of my sorrows. No, not if I used an entire...
I don't believe in coddling, but neither do I believe in letting a child starve. Have an appetite later, you may find this bread and milk to your liking.
When I was at the orphanage, I used to pretend that I was the Queen of Naples during a time of bitter famine, and every night, out of love for my subjects, I would eat nothing but a crust of bread and a glass of water.
It's getting late. Say your prayers now and get into bed.
I don't know how to say a prayer.
Don't you know that it's a bad habit not to say your prayers every night?
You'd find it easier to be bad than good if you had red hair. People who haven't red hair don't know what a trouble it is. The matron said that God made my hair red on purpose, and I haven't cared about him since.
Oh, you must say your prayers while you're under my roof, Anne.
Oh, of course, if it will oblige you. Only you'll have to tell me what to say just this once.
You're old enough to pray for yourself. Just thank God for your blessings and ask him humbly for the things that you want.
All right. Gracious Heavenly Father. That's the way the minister says it in church. I thank thee for the white way of delight, the lake of shining waters, and the snow queen. I'm really extremely grateful for them. As for the things I want, well, they're so numerous it would take a great deal of time to name them all, so I'll only say the 2 most important. Please let me stay at Green Gables. And please let me be good looking when I grow up. Yours respectfully, Anne Shirley.
That's enough for tonight. Now get into bed.
How you and Matthew must love living here at Green Gables. What a comfort it must be to know that when you look outside, you're surrounded by a land of utter beauty.
I suppose it's as pretty as any other place.
What are those lights across the way?
The lights over the stream there, that's the Berry house. They have a girl about your age.
I've never lived anywhere long enough to have a close friend.
The other light, that's Mrs. Lynde's.
Oh, Mrs. Lynde! I almost forgot. I was thinking of how terribly I acted towards your dear friend, and I would like to apologize. I've already begun thinking of what I'm going to say. Given a few hours, I will be able to think of the perfect thing. After all, if you must make an apology, it might as well be a beautiful one, don't you think? Would you please take me to Mrs. Lynde's tomorrow before we return to the orphanage?
Well, I don't know.
But I know how deeply I hurt your dear friend, and I would like to smooth things over, so to speak.
I don't know about taking you back to the orphanage.
Oh, Miss Cuthbert, did you really just say that? What Would you let me stay at Green Gables?
It isn't decided yet.
But it is possible. It is possible, or did I imagine you said it?
Matthew is certainly disposed to it.
Oh, Miss Cuthbert, I'm so glad. No, glad isn't very nearly the word to describe it. Oh, I will try to be so good. It will be uphill work, I expect, though, for the matron often told me I was desperately wicked, but...
Listen, I really don't want you to get your hopes up. I want you to try to get some sleep, and then we'll just go visit Mrs. Lynde in the morning.
You have made a poor orphan the happiest girl in the world. Pretty cherry tree, are you there? It's me that's passed away, an unwanted stray. Home is a word I have often heard, but one that I've never known. Is it a fake? Is it quite absurd? I have a home of my own. Pretty cherry tree, just this once for me. Let a dream come true. It's all that I ask
Matthew Cuthbert, it's about time someone adopted that child and taught her something. Why, she's next door to a perfect heathen. I shall send for a prayer book tomorrow, and she shall go to Sunday school just as soon as I can get some suitable clothes made for her. I foresee that I will have my hands full. I've had a pretty easy life of it so far, but my time has come at last, and I suppose I'm just going to have to make the best of it.
Well, now, I suppose you know what's best, Marilla.
Wonderful day to be alive.
It's a lovely enough day for a church social.
Oh, Miss Cuthbert.
I reckon you can just call me Marilla.
But I would ever so much like to call you Mother, or even Aunt.
I don't suppose I'm neither of those. My name is Marilla, and Matthew's name is Matthew.
Marilla, can you think of how often I have imagined myself going to a real picnic? Do you think Diana Barry will be there?
The Barrys will be here.
Oh, I don't know why I'm so afraid. What if Diana doesn't like me?
I guess Diana will like you well enough, but it's her mother you have to reckon with. If she doesn't like you, it doesn't matter how much Diana does.
What if Diana doesn't like red hair? What if she doesn't have an imagination?
Well, that's the problem with imagining, isn't it? More often than not, you end up disappointed. Either way, you won't have to wait much longer to find out. And this is Mrs. Barry, and this is her daughter, Diana.
Diana's been looking forward to meeting you.
And you and Diana take some time to get to know each other. I'll be off with Mrs. Barry, seeing to lunch.
You're Aunt Shirley?
Spelled with an E.
Mother said that that Marilla and Matthew...
You can say orphan. I'm used to it.
Sometimes I feel like an orphan too. There isn't any other girl who lives near, and I have no sisters big enough to play with or talk to.
Oh, Diana, Marilla was right. She said you were a very pretty little girl, and next to being beautiful oneself, which is impossible in my case, it would be best to have a beautiful bosom friend.
You'll be going to school here in Avonlea? Mm-hmm. I can't wait for you to meet everyone.
Oh, can you imagine what it's going to be like to go to a new school where you don't know a single person and no one has yet made fun of the color of your hair?
I think your hair's pretty.
Oh, Diana, do you think you could like me a little? Enough to be my bosom friend?
I like you, Anne.
Then will you swear to be my friend forever and ever?
It's dreadfully wicked to swear.
Oh, not that kind of swearing. It just means vowing and promising solemnly.
Well, I don't mind doing that.
We must join hands like so. It ought to be over running water. I'll just use this path as a stream. I'll repeat the oath first. I solemnly swear to be faithful to my bosom friend, Diana Barry, as long as the sun and moon shall endure.
I solemnly swear to be faithful to my friend,
Bosom friend.
and surely,
As long as the sun and moon shall.
as long as the sun and moon shall endure.
A new friend for a new day, new songs to sing,
New games to play.
I'm glad that things like friendship never end. It's so nice to have a bosom friend.
prospect of a playmate. She's always poring over a book and straining her eyes. She reads entirely too much, and I can't stop her, for her father aids and abets her. Perhaps Anne will take her more out of doors. I agree, I think there's so many chances.
Oh, didn't you hear? Mr. Andrews took some of the girls out for a row, and Jane nearly fell overboard. She was leaning out to pick water lilies, and if her father hadn't grabbed her by the sass just in the nick of time, she would have fallen in and drowned.
Oh, dear.
Please, everyone, take out your books and begin where you left off yesterday. Students, this is a house of learning, not of chaos. Now then, open first to algebra, solve x for y of 7. Some suppose that numbers are the language spoken in heaven. Learn them well and they will serve you well in times of trouble. Shirk them and you'll find your dreams a broken pile of rubble. The problems for you to work are on the board. Take out your books and begin.
Letters in the numbers.
That's Gilbert Blythe. He's awfully handsome, man, and he teases the girls something terrible. He just torments our lives out.
Gilbert Blythe? Isn't his name written up on the porch next to Julia Bell's with a big take notice over that?
Yes, but I'm sure he doesn't like Julia Bell very much. I've heard him say he studied the multiplication table by her freckles.
Oh, well, don't speak to me about freckles. I have so many no one will ever put a take notice sign up with my name on it. But really, could you help?
I cannot speak for students who attend other schools, but those who attend mine will maintain proper order. Take out your grammars, please, and begin memorizing the pages I have listed on the board. Rhetoric will teach you how to write with grace and power. Learning to communicate will set you on a tower. She who can convey her thoughts will never lack for honor. Statesmen, poets, priests, and kings will lavish praise upon her. And as a reward for your complaining, when you are finished, if those of you in the fourth reader would turn to page 44 and begin memorizing Tennyson's Lady of Shalott. Very well. Now then, who among you in the class would like to stand and recite? Nobody? Miss Ellie Spurgeon, please. What? Who is responsible for this? Who? Very well then. Since no one is to come forward, take out your slates, please. You will each write, "Discipline is the mark of noble character and the foundation of our society," 50 times. And I don't want to hear any mumbling. Perhaps the next time one of you decides to pin a young lady's dress underneath her seat, the person responsible will come forward.
Whatever he said is not going to be.
And he's looking at you.
Who?
Him, Gilbert Blythe.
I think your Gilbert Blythe is rather handsome, but he's very bold. It isn't polite manners to wink at a girl. But really, how would I do this?
History is not a chore, it's not just dates and places. People who have lived before deserve our warm embraces. Socrates or Francis Drake may not be too well fitted, but when you learn just how they thought, you'll never be dull-witted.
everyone, carrots, 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 carrots.
You mean hateful boy! How dare you!
Miss Shirley, what does this mean?
It was my fault, Mr. Phillips. I teased her.
I am sorry to see a student of mine display such a temper and such a vindictive spirit. Miss Shirley, you will stand in front of the blackboard, in front of the rest of the class for the remainder of the afternoon. Anne Shirley has a very bad temper. And perhaps when you return tomorrow, you and others of the class like you will have learned something of value. Civilized ladies and gentlemen do not go about smashing slates over other people's heads.
Marilla Cuthbert says Anne's declared she won't go back to school. I must say, I've expected trouble ever since she started school. She's so high-strung.
Well, if you ask my advice, I'd humor Anne a little, that's what. It's my belief Mr. Phillips was in the wrong. He isn't any good at all as a school teacher. The order he keeps is scandalous.
Diana was real indignant. She took Anne's part right through, and she said the scholars did too. I never thought she'd be so popular among them.
Well, if it were up to me, I wouldn't say school to her again until she said it herself. Depend on it, Elizabeth. She'll cool off in a week or so. The less fuss made, the better. She won't miss much by not going to school as far as that goes.
I declare, I don't know what education on this island has come to. Perhaps we should.
Yes?
I've come to see Anne.
Won't you come in and sit down? Anne, you have a visitor.
Is it Diana?
No, it's not Diana.
I'm not seeing anyone.
She's not seeing anyone.
I'm never seeing anyone ever again.
It seems as though you've come at a bad time. You see, she's never seeing anyone ever again.
It's just that I brought her a gift. It's to replace the one since hers is broken, I thought it might be...
I'm sorry. Can we start with a clean slate?
Oh, it's you.
Gilbert brought you a gift, Anne.
It's a slate.
I know what it is, and I know what to do with it.
It's just that things turned out so horribly, Anne, and I wanted you to know that I forgive you.
You forgive me?
For hitting me over the head.
You forgive me?
No, that's not what I meant. It's just that I feel terrible about what happened, and I want us to be friends.
Robins will never swim with goldfish. Juniper bushes will never recite Shakespeare. And you and I will never be friends.
Well, I suppose I'd best be on my way.
That was a real nice gesture, Gilbert Blythe.
Gilbert,
Mrs.
good
Lynde.
afternoon.
As well.
I heard about the incident at school. I'm not one to meddle, but from the first day I saw that child, I wondered what would become of one with such a temper.
Since you've raised 10 of your own, I thought maybe you'd know what to do.
Well, Marilla, since you've asked my advice, I'm not so sure Anne wasn't provoked.
I never saw a child so upset.
From what I hear, Mr. Phillips was more to blame than Anne. Of course, it doesn't do to say so in front of the children, you know.
But she swears she will never go to school again.
I wouldn't press it if I were you. Give her some time to cool off, that's what. In a week or so, she'll be ready enough to go back of her own accord.
Anne, you best come down and get things ready. Diana will be here soon. I'd hoped she might take a liking to school.
Well, she won't miss much by not attending the Avonlea school. If I have any say in the matter, there will be a new master at the school next year.
Hello, Mrs. Lynde.
Oh, my child. How good to see you. You've grown. How long have you been at Green Gables?
Almost a year now, but it already feels as though I've never lived anywhere else.
You're growing up real well, Anne. I don't know, but that your hair might not turn a very pretty shade of auburn eventually.
Oh, Mrs. Lynde, do you really mean that? Oh, I wonder if you could possibly know how it would make me feel to have even a hope of auburn hair.
And Diana Berry will be over soon. You can use the old tea set if you like. There's a bottle half full of raspberry cordial left over from the church social. It's in the sideboard cupboard, and you and Diana can have it if you like.
Oh, today is going to be the most perfect day.
Mrs. Barry and Diana will be here any moment now. We'll be over in Carmody at a meeting of the Aid Society for the afternoon.
Look how beautiful.
But Anne, remember, you have a responsibility when a guest comes to visit. Don't get carried off in your daydreams.
Inspection of
Diana?
Hello, Miss Lynn, Miss Cuthbert.
Diana Barry, how good of you to come to tea.
Thank you, Aunt Shirley. It was so good of you to invite me.
How is your mother?
She is very well, thank you. I suppose Mr. Cuthbert is going to harvest his apples soon?
Oh, Marilla said we could have all of the red sweetings left on the tree at the end of the harvest. Marilla is a very generous woman. She said we could have fruitcake and raspberry cordial for tea. I just love bright red drinks, don't you? They make everything taste better.
Oh, Anne, you're missing so much by not being at school. We'll be playing ball next week, and you've never played ball before, and it's tremendously exciting. And Alice Andrews is going to bring a new Pansy book, and we're all going to read it out loud down by the brook. And you know how you are so fond of reading out loud. Oh, please, won't you come back to school?
I would do most anything in the world for you, Diana. I would have myself be torn limb from limb if it would do any good, but I cannot do what you ask. You harrow up my very soul.
You mustn't mind Gilbert. He makes fun of all the girls.
I shall never forgive Gilbert Blythe.
This is awfully nice raspberry cordial.
I'm real glad you like it.
It's the nicest I ever drank. It's ever so much nicer than Mrs. Lynn's, although she brags of hers so much. Doesn't taste a bit like hers.
Oh, well, Marilla is a famous cook. She's trying to teach me, but I assure you, Diana, it is uphill work. Just Tuesday, she made plum pudding and pudding sauce for dinner, and I was told to take it down to the pantry and cover it. Well, I meant to cover it, Diana, just as much as anyone could, but while I was taking it down to the pantry, I was imagining you were afflicted with the smallpox, and I was nursing you back to health.
Smallpox can make you sick.
I forgot all about the plum pudding, but I remembered the next morning, and I rushed down to the pantry. Imagine, if you can, my extreme horror at finding a mouse drowned in that pudding sauce.
Mouse in the sauce. Mouse in the sauce.
I fished the mouse out with a spoon and washed the spoon in 3 waters. The next day, Marilla invited Reverend Allen and his wife to dinner, and I was trying to be as polite and dignified as I could, for I wanted Mrs. Allen to think I was a ladylike little girl, even if I wasn't pretty.
I can be ladylike. Want to watch? Hello, do you do? My name is Diana Derry. Thank you very much.
Diana, are you feeling all right?
Perfectly peachy, and I don't mind telling you.
Everything was going fine until Marilla came out with the plum pudding and the pudding sauce. I remembered everything, so I just stood up in my chair and yelled, "Marilla, you mustn't use that pudding sauce! There was a mouse drowned in it." Oh, Diana, that was a terrible day. I will not forget it if I live to be 100.
I can't feel my teeth. Ooh, can you feel my teeth? Do I have teeth?
Diana, whatever is the matter?
Let me tell you a little something. I think I'm about to be sick.
Oh, here, have some fruitcake. That might settle your stomach a bit. Lie down on the Chesterfield for a while.
I think I shall go home.
Diana, you don't think you've really caught the smallpox, do you?
I apologize again for inconveniencing you. I think I'd forget my head if it wasn't attached.
Nothing to worry about. We've plenty of... Diana? Diana, dear, what is wrong? Diana Barry, you are sick drunk.
This isn't raspberry cordial. It's currant wine. And didn't you know the difference?
When I first heard you had brought in an orphan, Marilla, I thought that what other people did, that was their business, but I was determined that my Diana would not be influenced by someone without a proper upbringing. I can see now that my first impression was the right one.
Mrs. Barry, you must forgive me. I didn't mean to intoxicate Diana.
This is all my fault. Anne didn't mean any harm. She just mistook one bottle for another.
I will thank you to never permit that red-headed orphan to speak with my Diana again. Good day, Marilla.
I heard Mrs. Barry Barry tell Mrs. Lind that Anne Shirley set her Diana drunk on Saturday and then sent her home in a disgraceful condition.
Oh my, what on earth did Anne give her?
I don't know. But Mrs. Barry said that Anne was a thoroughly bad, wicked girl, and she's never, ever letting Diana play with her again.
Oh my, whatever will Anne do?
I don't know, but I knew Anne would do something like this eventually.
Matthew Cuthbert, what on earth are you doing?
Anne said once she liked chocolate sweets.
It will ruin her teeth and stomach.
Well, now, I don't know. I reckon in a child who's done without for so much of her life, it might not be such a bad thing.
It's just one thing after another with that girl.
It is all over. I shall never have another friend. Diana and I had such an affecting farewell down by the spring. It will be sacred in my memory forever. I used the most pathetic language I could think of. Thou and thee. Thou and thee sounds so much more romantic than you, don't you think? Diana gave me a lock of her hair, and I'm going to wear it in a bag around my neck for the rest of my life. Please see that it is buried with me, for I don't believe I will live very long. Maybe when she sees my cold, dead body before her, Mrs. Barry will feel some remorse for what she has done and let Diana come to my funeral.
I know it's a terrible, hard thing, man. Sometimes things happen that seem cruel and unfair, but I suppose if the road we traveled on were always straight and smooth, we'd miss out on the best life has to offer. You'll see, Anne. If you just don't give up hope, things will work out. They always do.
I never expected a road free from pain. An orphan must learn to get used to the rain. But just when I finally discovered a friend, I meet with a bend in the road.
Each journey you take has its heartaches and trials. Your feet hurt, your back aches, you walk on for miles. And just when you think that you've come to the end, you meet with a bend in the road. There's nothing wrong with surprises, each chapter has its twist.
But when it's you in the story, you'd like to clear the mist. There may be some who will never be poor, will never be lonely or ugly or bored.
But those who think heartache has come to an end must meet with a bend in the road. And sometimes the heartache can be your best friend when you meet at the bend in the road.
A new schoolmaster.
School mistress. Anne, you'll have to come back to school now.
Ever since I heard the news, it's all I've been able to think about.
You're coming back? You're really coming back?
This time, I am determined to make Mathew and Marilla proud.
A certain Gilbert Blythe will be happy to hear it.
Well, thank you very much not to mention his name.
But he asks about you all the time.
And Diana's so pathetically sad.
I've resigned myself. I don't believe Mrs. Barry will ever change her mind about letting me see Diana.
Maybe in time.
At least I will be able to look across the room and remember happier days.
Do you think things will be different now that Mr. Phillips has left?
What will Miss Stacy be like?
What if she makes us write stories?
But that isn't hard. It's fun.
For you, you have 100 ideas going all around at once, but I don't have a single one in my head.
It's not difficult if you practice. I have an idea. I'll show you. You remember the Lady of Shalott?
Yes.
You see before you the castle of the Fairy Queen. And over here are the fields where the harvesters reap. And here, the river. And to the side, you look out on Camelot. On either side of the river lie long fields of barley and of rye that clothe the world and meet the sky. And through the field a road runs by to many towered Camelot. And up and down the people go, gazing where the lilies grow. Round an island there below, the island of harvest the autumn grain, we listen mournfully to the Fairy Queen's song. Imagine you are sheaves. And by the moon, the reaper weary, piling sheaves in uplands airy, till she whispers, "'Tis the fairy, Lady of Shalott." You must be the Fairy Queen. And as she weaves her enchanted tapestry day and night, this will be your loom, and these your strands of silver and gold from which you weave the tapestry. And as she weaves by night and day a magic web with colors gay, she has heard a whisper say, "A curse is on her if she stay, the Lady of Shalott." Carrie, you must be Lancelot, and as he rides to Camelot, the Fairy Queen cannot help but look out the castle window. And moving through a mirror clear, the shadows of the world appear. And when the moon was overhead, I'm sick of shadows, said the maid, the Lady of Shalott. He rode between the barley sheaves, the sun came dazzling through the leaves, and flamed upon the brazen greaves of bold Sir Lancelot. She left the web, she left the loom, and in a day she left the room. She saw the water lily bloom, she saw the helmet and the plume, for Lady of Shalott. And as she looked to Camelot, out flew the web and floated wide. The mirror it cracked from side to side. Like the Lady of Shalott. Gilbert Blythe, how dare you spy on me?
Anne, can't we be good friends? I'm awfully sorry I made fun of your hair that time. I only meant it as a joke. Besides, it's so long ago. I think your hair is awfully pretty. Honest, I do.
No, I will never be friends with you, Gilbert Blythe.
All right, then I will never ask you again.
Gilbert Blythe is dead gone on you.
He's awfully handsome, Anne. He's very bold. It isn't polite manners to spy on a girl. But it was all so romantic. I never want to hear the word romantic ever again. She sang a carol mournful holy, till her blood was frozen slowly, and her eyes were dark and holy, down to Camelot. All the nights at Camelot, the Lancelot stood off apace. He said, "She has a lovely face, God in His mercy lend her grace, the Lady of Shalott, Shalott,
Fancy that. Lon Taylor's milk cow just fell over and died.
Oh,
Wasn't startled or shook, just dropped.
does that happen very often to animals?
Not as often as it does to people.
Marilla says sometimes you have pains in your chest.
Does she?
She says that you work too hard and that one day you might just up and die like Lon Taylor.
Sit down, man. Sit down. There's no sense in worrying about what may or may not be. All we can do is live each day the good Lord gives us as best we can.
But what would I do if anything were to happen to you?
I reckon you'd grieve a little bit, and then life would go on. That's just the way it is, Ann. People just carry on.
I could never carry on.
But you would, because you have a life of promise. The very day I met you, I knew you were something special.
Marilla doesn't think there'll ever be an end to my getting in trouble. But I think my prospects of becoming sensible are brighter and brighter every day.
How's that?
Every mistake I make is going to cure me of something. I've decided that it's no use trying to be a romantic here in Avonlea. It must have been easy enough towered in Camelot hundreds of years ago, but I fear Marilla is right. Romance isn't sensible in this modern world. Take a breath of air. With a different view, there's a world full of normal out there. Fancy makes no sense. All the evidence tells me each adventure
out of town when there's nobody to go for the doctor. No, Anne, I'm so scared.
Matthew's gone to get the doctor. I know just what to do. I'll go get the ipecac from the house. You mind having it at yours? There we go. Come on now. I know that Matthew's gone to get the doctor. I know it just as well as if he had said it. Matthew and I are such kindred spirits, and I know what he's saying, what he's thinking without words. And you forget, Mrs. Hammond had 3 sets of twins. After you take care of 3 sets of twins, you get a little bit of experience, but she's got croup all right. I know just what to do. Go get the hot water and soft flannel rags for her forehead. I'll give her a dose of the ipecac first.
Anne, is everything all right?
Dr. Blair, thank heavens you've come. Minnie May was coughing and choking, and, well, Anne knew just what to do on account of having lived in the orphanage.
Oh, I gave her every last dose of the ipecac, but just when I was starting to lose hope, she coughed up the phlegm and started to get better right away.
Just last winter, Mary Campbell lost a child to the croup.
Where is she?
You were fortunate.
Where's my baby?
Your baby is here, exhausted from the ordeal, but none the worse for wear.
Doctor, thank God you came. I've never been so worried in my life.
I don't know how we can thank you, Doctor. You too, Matthew.
Diana?
I was so frightened.
What is this orphan girl doing in my house?
Mrs. Barry, you should speak a bit more civilly to the person who saved your daughter's life.
But Matthew brought you here from Carmody.
I just arrived here, same as you. It just so happens without that red-headed girl, you would be planning a funeral. By the time I got here, it would have been too late to do much but fill out the death certificate.
Diana, is this true?
I tried to tell you. Anne worked with Minnie May forever before she finally settled down.
That
Diana.
little red-headed girl, they don't make them like they used to. She's the one that saved your daughter's life, not me.
Diana, run after Matthew and Anne and ask them to return so I can thank them properly. And Diana, please, beg Anne to forgive me.
Dr. Blair says Anne has a skill and presence of mind perfectly wonderful in a child of her age.
Elizabeth Barry's beside herself with remorse for how she acted in that affair of the currant wine. I think she's sincere in her hopes that Diana and Anne will be good friends again.
If I know Anne, she'll harbor no hard feelings.
So grateful the Barry child is all right.
Isn't it a wonderful day? The world looks like something God imagined for his own pleasure, doesn't it?
Mrs. Barry couldn't stop saying how sorry she was, Anne.
I don't suppose you'll have any more trouble when it comes to spending time with Diana.
You see before yourself a perfectly happy person. Yes, in spite of my red hair. At present, I have a soul above red hair.
Why, Miss Stacy, what a pleasant surprise.
Miss Stacy!
We missed you at school today, Anne. It's all right. I heard about the Barry child.
Anne isn't in any trouble, is she?
Oh, quite the contrary. I'm starting a special class to prepare students to go to Queen's College to pass for teachers. Have you ever thought of becoming a teacher, Anne?
Oh, it's been my dream ever since you came, but won't it be dreadfully expensive? Mr. Andrews said it cost $150 to put Prissy through, and Prissy wasn't a dunce in geometry.
I don't suppose you'll have to worry about that part of it. When Matthew and I took you to bring up, we resolved we would do the very best we could for you and give you a good education. I believe in a girl being fitted to earn her own living, whether she ever has to or not. So you may join the Queen's class if you'd like, Anne.
There's more. A concert is being organized for the spring to benefit the Charlottetown Hospital. They're bringing in all the best talent from miles around, and I would like Anne to represent Avonlea. She has a real gift for reciting.
Oh, Marilla, can you believe it? It makes me shiver just to think about it.
I don't believe in children's concerts and racing off to practices. It makes them vain and forward and fond of gadding.
Don't you hope your little Anne will distinguish herself?
I hope you behave yourself.
If I know Anne, she'll not only behave herself, but she'll be the envy of the island.
Well, now, we'd be real proud if you'd accept, Anne.
I suppose I'll have to make you a new dress, and there probably won't be any living with you until this is over.
Today is the most perfect day. Take a breath of air. I can feel tomorrow, it's calling me, waiting there. Take a breath of air. I can see my future unfolding right there. Could it be a fairy tale back
beckons now for me. Could it be I'm on the trail of happily ever aftering?
I think I will keep a little romance after all.
A little romance isn't such a silly thing at all. A little romance helps to keep us standing tall. It's like a cake without the flour, or Camelot without a tower. Without a little romance, life seems tiring and small. A little romance isn't just for actors on stage. A touch of make-believe is good at any age. It helps get through the lonely day. It sends the doldrums on their way. It lists the action off of each and every little page. Keep a little bit just for yourself. That's just the thing to say. From each shining day, we need those little hopes and schemes. Don't go too far. Wish on a star and color each adventure with your dreams.
Miss Stacy's organizing a class to study for the entrance examination into Queen's College. Only her most advanced students were invited.
You aren't the only one asking, Josie. And Shirley's been invited too.
I'm going to go, just for education's sakes, as I certainly won't have to earn my living the way an orphan who's living on charity will surely have to.
Ruby and I are studying to be teachers. That is the height of ambition.
I will only teach for 2 years, though. Then I intend to be married.
I'm going to be a minister. I'm going to go into politics and become a member of parliament.
What about you, Gilbert? What's your ambition in life?
I'd like to study medicine, but
I heard that the Berries don't intend to let Diana go to Queen's, so she won't be joining the class. So Anne will be able to devote all her attention to being first in class.
I think there's no doubt in the world that Gilbert will be first.
thank you, Josie, but I think you're underestimating Anne there.
I understand you have quite a large group of scholars this year.
4 will be applying to Queen's next fall.
4 teachers from Avonlea in 1 year?
I'm proud of them all.
And one of your pupils was selected to recite at the concert of White Sands.
And Shirley will have that honor.
That way I hear it, and Shirley is the best student on the island.
I reckon I wouldn't disagree with that.
Why don't you wait on Mr. Cuthbert, Lucilla? I'd like to take a look around a bit longer.
You seem a bit nervous today, Mr. Cuthbert. Can I help you find anything?
Have you any garden rakes?
In October, I believe we have 1 or 2 left over. Let me check. Here's one. There you are.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Well, since you mention it, I might as well take, look at some brown sugar.
We have 20-pound sacks of it. How much would you like?
I'll take the 20 pounds.
Is that open for you today, Mr. Cuthbert?
Well, if it isn't any trouble, I might like some hayseed.
We normally start hayseed in the spring.
Well, certainly, as you
But
say.
I believe we have 1 sack left in the back room. Do we let me
Matthew.
to check?
You said you'd only be a few minutes.
We could always use another garden rake.
And all that,
Brown sugar, I thought it might come in handy sometime.
whatever has possessed you. I couldn't use that much brown sugar in 5 years.
Sorry, Mr. Cuthbert. No hayseed.
Hayseed? This late in the season?
I have a feeling Matthew isn't here for brown sugar or hayseed or even a rake. Are you, Matthew?
Well, now I'm reckoning not.
What did you come here for?
Judging by the way you keep glancing behind that counter, my guess is fabric?
Stuff and nonsense. What on earth would you want fabric for? I've plenty of fabric in the sewing cupboard at home.
Well, now, as it turns out, I was watching Anne rehearsing her speech with the other girls, and I noticed something wasn't right. Well, it turns out that the other girls were dressed different. Anne's dress, it was sort of plain, standing up next to the other girls. Their dresses all looked pretty.
Pretty. I don't believe in pampering a child's vanity, Matthew. Dresses I made for her are good, sensible, serviceable dresses without any frills or furbelows about them, and they're all a child her age needs.
But Marilla, that poor child has been wearing the same pattern since she came to Green Gables.
Would it be such a trouble to let her have just one dress like the other girls?
Marilla Cuthbert, what on earth are you laughing about?
Land's sake, Matthew. The sight of you with that garden rake and all that brown sugar.
Marilla, I insist you let me take over this entire dress affair from start to finish.
Well, now, I'm much obliged.
I'll take all your white organdy. I must say, I never would have thought Anne would turn out so well. It's nothing short of wonderful how she's improved these 3 years. She's a real pretty girl, too. She makes the others look kind of common and overdone, that's what.
She is a real pretty little thing, isn't she?
Land's sake, listen to the two of you talk. Why, you'd think the very stars are brighter when they shine down on wherever Anne Shirley is.
Well, I don't know that ain't but what's true.
The window twinkles, the crystal tinkles.
The rafters laugh instead of
The lamp is brighter, and light is lighter. Where Anne is, where Anne is.
The meadow glistens, the willow listens. She has a music all her own. And all around us, the magic's found us. Where Anne is, you'll never be alone. The sunlight sparkles, a brighter sparkle. The daffodils begin to green. The moonlight chases, the river races. Where Anne is, where Anne is. When hearts are weary and life gets teary, when rhyme and reason all have flown, she'll run to find you and she'll remind you where love is, you cannot be alone. The meadow glistens, the willow listens. She has a music all her own. And all around us, the magic's found us. Where Anne is
This is such a grand affair. I never dreamed there would be so many people. It's perfectly elegant.
Do I look too out of place, Diana?
You look pale, Anne. Are you feeling sick?
I wasn't feeling nervous at all until now. All I felt was a sort of thrill. Every time I practiced, I imagined what it would be like to hear the audience applaud for me.
What's wrong?
It's just when I look at those people I've never seen before, people dressed in sables and satin.
They're just the same as in Avonlea. They're all looking forward to hearing you recite.
I want so much to be a credit to Marilla and Matthew and all of Avonlea.
You will be, I promise.
Matthew got these pearls for me from town last week. I know he'd like to see me wear them.
It's hard to believe you'll be leaving in 2 months. What shall I do while you're away at Queen's College?
What if I forget my lines?
Every time I think about it, it makes me want to cry.
What if I fall off the stage?
You are not going to forget your lines, and you definitely will not fall off the stage.
What makes you so sure?
Because I have a feeling this sophisticated audience won't stop applauding you until you agree to recite an encore.
They wouldn't dream of encoring me.
What will you recite if they do?
This is White Sands, Diana. They will not encore me.
How about? On either side the river lie long fields of barley and a rye that glow the world and meet the sky, and through the field the road runs by.
The Lady of Shalott.
It would be absolutely perfect.
They will not encore me.
All the same, my advice is that you brush up on your Tennyson.
Start any minute now.
Are you feeling better now?
I think I am. Thank you, Diana.
You'll never guess. Mariah Evans is here. She's going to recite.
But Mrs. Evans recites professionally.
We have to take our seats, Diana, or we'll miss it.
Good luck, Anne.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, I will present to you Miss Mariah Evans.
Half a league, half a league, half a league onward. into the valley of death, rode the 600.
I just wanted to wish you well, Anne. Knowing how much you like flowers, I thought maybe this might remind you of Matthew's rose bushes. I thought maybe it might inspire you. Anne, whatever is the matter?
I'm going to be sick.
But you're about to perform.
I can't. I will positively embarrass Matthew and Marilla and all of Avonlea if I do.
That's absurd. You're the brightest, the prettiest girl in Avonlea.
They are all so rich and sophisticated.
You can't think like that. It's nearly your turn.
They've only come to laugh at the expense of a country fool. I feel so humiliated. Why did I ever agree to recite at White Sands?
She's nearly finished. You have to do it, Anne. Miss Stacy is relying on you.
I can't. Not for Miss Stacy. Not even for Matthew. I simply can't.
I kind of figured this might happen. What? The first day I saw you, I thought, there's a girl who likes to laugh when the sun is out, but when it starts to pour, she's nowhere to be found.
What do you mean?
And here it is, drizzling a bit. A few high society types stick their nose in the air, and what do? Let down Mathew and Marilla, Miss Stacy, and all of Avonlea? They're all out there, every one of them, holding their breath, waiting for their Anne Shirley to step out and make them proud. And here you are, moaning about the fact that you come from the very place they hold most dear in the world.
How dare you say
I
that
should
to
have
me?
known you couldn't do it. Carrots.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, Avonlea's own Miss Anne Shirley.
The wind was a torrent of darkness among the gusty trees. The moon was a ghostly galleon tossed upon cloudy seas.
Anne of Green Gables with your carrot-colored hair, your freckle-covered nose, and your fiery eyes of green. Anne of Green Gables, you might act like you don't care by putting on an air like an actor in a scene. A sassy look or a flying book, it's all a little game, a part of your disinterested plan. A trifle sad or a little glad, you're never quite the same, but you've become the one and only Anne.
Sweetheart, I'm after a prize tonight, but I shall return with the yellowed gold before the morning light. Yet if they press me sharply and harry me through the day, then look for me by moonlight. Watch for me by moonlight. I'll come to thee by moonlight, though hell should bar the way.
My dear, you did splendidly. I've been crying like a baby. Actually, I have. Can you hear that? They're encoring you. They're bound to have you back.
Oh, I can't, but yet I must. Matthew said they'd encore me. He'd be so disappointed if I didn't go.
Then don't disappoint Matthew.
Yes. On either side of the river lie long fields of barley and of rye.
And your recitation was simply great. I think it was better than Miss Evans.
Don't say things like that. You just sound silly. Mrs. Evans recites professionally, and I'm just a schoolgirl with a knack for reciting. I'm fine if everyone just liked mine all right.
I have a compliment for you, Anne. There is an American sitting behind Jane and me. Such a romantic-looking man with coal black hair and eyes. Josie Pye says he's a distinguished artist and that her mother's cousin in Boston is married to a man that used to go to school with him. Well, we heard him say, didn't we, Jane? Who is that girl on the platform with the splendid Titian hair? She is a face I should like to paint. But what does Titian hair mean?
I suppose translated it just means red hair. Titian was a famous artist who liked to paint red-headed women.
Matthew, you just sit there while I Send for Dr. Blair.
There's not much point to that, Marilla. We both know what he'll say.
What else will he say other than you're a fool for working so hard? Why won't you take things easier?
Well, I've always worked like a horse. I guess I'd just prefer to drop in harness.
And that's exactly what you're going to do if you don't ease up on your work. That's why we got the hired hand. He's real good and he can do most everything on his own.
It just eats away at me when there's things to be done and I'm just sitting watching the clouds go by.
I suppose Ann will be home from Queens any time now. Maybe she can get you to slow. What are you smiling about?
Reckon we're glad you kept her, Marilla?
You do like to rub things in, Mathew Cuthbert.
It's been kind of lonely this last year without Ann around.
Lance, do you remember that first month she was here? I didn't suspect I would have a moment of peace for the rest of my life.
There never was a luckier mistake than what Mrs. Spencer made, if it was luck. Maybe it turns out Rachel Lynn was right after all, and it was Providence, though not in the way she intended. The good Lord saw we needed her, I reckon.
Mathew, Marilla!
Oh, Ann. Lands, girl, look how tall you've grown.
I know it's rude not to ask about Green Gables, but I have the most remarkable news. I've been dying since I left Queens to tell you.
I suppose we can catch up with talk about the hay crop later.
First of all, I passed at Queens, which means as of today, I am a teacher, or I could be if I was offered a position.
I never had a doubt.
But Marilla, Mathew, I passed at the head of my class. Tied with Gilbert Blythe, but still, the head of my class.
That's my Ann girl.
When the examination results were posted at first, I was so nervous that I couldn't look, but then the most remarkable thing happened. Someone yelled out 3 cheers for Anne Shirley, winner of the Avery. Mathew, Marilla, it's a full scholarship.
I always said my Ann girl was the smartest on the island.
Then everyone was around me, wanting to shake my hand, and the only thing I could think to say was, won't Mathew and Marilla be proud?
To take first-class license in 1 year and win the Avery. Well, I'm real proud of you, Ann, real proud.
Today is the most wonderful day.
What is this I've been hearing about a certain young woman from Avonlea and the Avery Scholarship?
Diana!
Matthew, why don't you come in and lie down while I get supper on? Let these two talk.
I'll be in a minute. Oh, it's so good to see the White Way of Delight and the Lake of Shining Waters. And oh, it's so good to see you again, Diana.
I suppose you won't be teaching now that you've won the Avery.
Doesn't it seem wonderful? I'm going to Redmond University in the fall, and by then I'll have a whole new stock of ambitions laid out. After 3 glorious golden months of summer.
Gilbert Blythe is going to teach. He has to. His father can't afford to send him to college next year after all, so he means to earn his way through.
Oh.
You didn't know that about Gilbert?
No, I just assumed he'd be going to Redmond with me.
But why should it matter what Gilbert Blythe decides to do?
He's just been such an inspiring rival over the past few years. I can't imagine what school would be like without him to... I'm excited to see you, Diana.
I have to go, but okay. I'll come first thing in the morning and we'll visit the Dryad's Bubble and the Haunted Wood. And oh, it's so good to have you back at Green Gables.
Mathew! Marilla, come quick!
Oh, stay with him. I'll send the hired hand for the doctor.
You'll look after Marilla now, won't you, Ann?
Don't talk like that, Mathew.
She's got a terrible pain behind her eyes, and Dr. Blair says if she doesn't read or sew or cry, she won't go stone blind in 6 months. She might stubborn, but she loves you dearly, and she misses you when you're not around.
I'll be here this summer. I can do the chores. Maybe her sight will be better by the time I leave for Redmond.
That would be real nice.
You look so sad, Mathew.
I was just wishing you could have stayed a little girl.
I'm not changed. Not really. I shall always be your little Ann.
What a lucky thing you came into our lives.
If I'd been the boy you sent for, I could have spared you in 100 ways.
I'd rather have you than a dozen boys and my Ann girl.
Matthew, don't leave me.
I'll never leave you, Ann, with an E.
Oh, Matthew.
Dr. Blair said that Matthew's death was instantaneous and probably painless.
He looks so peaceful.
Such a kindly smile, as if he were dreaming pleasant dreams.
The roses Anne gathered to lay beside him, they were the ones his mother planted in her homestead garden in her bridal days. Matthew always tended them with such great fondness.
'Tis such a blessing Marilla has Anne to comfort her. It doesn't seem right, somehow, that things can go on without Matthew. I miss him so much, all the time, and yet, just today, Diana said something funny, and I found myself laughing.
When Matthew was here, he liked to hear you laugh. He liked to know you found pleasure in the pleasant things around you.
You must let me do the chores from now on, Marilla. And you need to save your eyesight this summer.
Rachel says Gilbert Blythe is sure to get the school here at Avonlea.
Oh.
What a nice-looking fellow he is. He looks a lot like his father did at the same age, John Blythe. We were real good friends, he and I. People called him my beau.
Marilla, what happened? Why didn't you...
We had a quarrel. I wouldn't forgive him when he asked me to. I wanted to punish him first. I always felt rather sorry I didn't forgive him.
So you've had a little romance in your life too, then?
You wouldn't think so to look at me, would you? Everyone's forgotten about me and John. I'd almost forgotten myself.
Mrs. Barry says you're considering selling Green Gables?
Mr. Sadler's made an offer.
You mustn't sell Green Gables.
Oh, Anne, I wish I didn't have to, but you can see for yourself. I can't get along here by myself. I'd go crazy with trouble and loneliness, and my sight would go. I know it would.
Well, you're not going to stay here alone, and you're definitely not going to sell Green Gables. I'll be with you. I've made up my mind. I'm not going to Redmond.
What do you mean?
I'm not going to take the scholarship. I made the decision the night Matthew died. I'm going to teach. I've been given the Carmody School. Mr. Hutton told me at the store last night.
Oh, Anne, I could get along real well with you here, I know. But I can't let you sacrifice yourself. So for me, no. I can't allow it. You'll go to Redmond, and we won't hear any more about it.
Nonsense. Nothing would hurt me more than to see Green Gables sold to someone else. My mind is quite made up, Marilla. I'm not going to Redmond, and I am going to save your eyesight.
You blessed girl.
I thought I'd find you here. I declare all of Avonlea is talking about you, Anne. Truth be told, I was glad to hear you've given up your notion of going to college.
Oh, not at all. I plan to take classes here by correspondence.
And surely you'll kill yourself.
I shall thrive in it. I have evenings and weekends. I've been offered the Carmody School, you know.
I don't know it. I guess you're going to teach right here in Avonlea. The trustees have decided to give you the school.
But it's been promised to Gilbert Blythe.
So it was. But as soon as Gilbert heard you were planning on leaving or staying in Avonlea, he went to the board and withdrew his application and recommended they accept you. Gilbert has arranged to teach at Carmody. Of course, it will be a sacrifice for him, seeing as how he has his board to pay, and everybody knows he has to earn his own way through college. But long and short of it is, they've decided to give you the school. I was tickled to death when I heard it.
I don't think I ought to take it. I mean, I don't think I ought to let Gilbert make that kind of a sacrifice for me.
He signed papers with the board, so it won't do him any good now. If you were to refuse, of course you'll take the school.
Anne, don't you think you have a word or two with Gilbert before he leaves?
I suppose I should.
You run along, child. I'll spend a few moments with Marilla. She'll still be here when you get back.
Do you see, Rachel? In spite of all the mistakes I made with that girl, I reckon she's grown up real nice after all.
Marilla Cuthbert has got mellow, that's what. Now you know what the doctor said about you crying.
You see that cherry tree, Rachel? It blooms as if it meant it. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to sleep in a wild cherry tree, all white with bloom in the moonshine?
To thank you for giving up the school for me. I really don't know how to thank you.
Don't you think, after all this time, we should be friends?
Gilbert, I'd like that very much.
We were born to be the best of friends, and you've thwarted destiny enough. We can help each other in so many ways. You are going to keep up your studies, aren't you?
Yes.
So am I.
Perhaps on weekends?
And holidays.
I want us to be Latin and Shakespeare.
And we have 3 years to catch up on. I have to travel to Carmody, but I'll be back in town Saturday.
Could I see you then?
Would you like to have a picnic lunch at Barry's, the Lake of Shining Water?
I would like that very much. I'll pack lemonade and biscuits and...
And
Do you like carrots?
5 years ago, I thought you'd never speak to me again. Now it's picnic lunch and carrots. Where do you think the next 5 years will take us?
When I left Queens, my future at last seemed to stretch before me like a straight road. But now I meet another bend. I don't know what lies around that bend, but I'm going to believe that the best does. It has a fascination of its own, that bend, Gilbert, and I wonder where the road beyond it goes. I never expected a road free from pain. This orphan has learned to love sunshine